We are live on YouTube here at the MVP Show. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at the MVP Show. And we'll start with this. You know, I'm wearing a blue shirt. It's not a Giants shirt, it's a Ranger shirt, but I'm a Giants fan. They're 0-2. The Jets are 0-2. New York sports, in terms of football, not great. But I have faith, not, conviction, that the Giants can beat the 49ers this Sunday. And I know what you're saying, John. Optimism in the past. It's been a detriment. You shouldn't be too optimistic about this team. The Giants are playing the AAA San Francisco 49ers today. Nick Mullins is their starting quarterback. Where'd he go to college? No one knows, right? Jimmy G's out. They're missing both their running backs in Coleman and Mostert. Who do they have at receiving? Not enough to help out Mullins. The defense, which is strong, and was strong, and one of the reasons, probably the main reason, that they were just a possession away from being the Super Bowl champions, is missing a key part of their defensive line. Richard Sherman isn't active. Who else do they have? That's my thing. It's not so much good Giants as much as it is bad 49ers. And you might say on the flip side, okay, John, the 49ers might be the most injury-riddled team. Bose is out. Sherman's out. And the Giants have Saquon out now. And Sterling Shepard out now. But this is where a guy like Daniel Jones has to step up. There's no excuses. There's excuses when you're playing a tough team that's fully healthy where you miss your Pro Bowl running back and your star receiver. You're taking on the AAA 49ers. This is a moment, I think, for Daniel Jones in his career for the franchise of the New York Giants. You look back, Eli Manning, Phil Simms, even Y.A. Tittle won their first game as a Giant against the San Francisco 49ers. This is his moment. He has to step up. He's playing average, subpar so far. The losses, I won't pin on him. He hasn't been amazing in the losses, but he hasn't been the main reason that they've lost the game. This week, the Giants defense coming off a good week in which they kept Chicago only to 17 points. They're playing the AAA 49ers. Daniel Jones needs to step up, and if he does, I think the Giants could win it. Boys, tell me why I'm crazy. Put logic into me.
Yeah, I'll gladly.
Okay.
John, I riddle you. Who is the best player on the New York Giants roster?
James Bradbury, cornerback. In my opinion, after 2 weeks, people. Yes. I mean, Saquon technically is, but if you're talking about active, I would say James Bradbury. Yes.
Exactly. The best player on the roster is not active today.
Okay, who's the best player?
He's the guy that the Giants.
Who's the internet's a little buffy with Brennan at least. Who's the best player on?
You talk about all these injuries for the 49ers, but it's the same thing for the Giants.
Who's the best player? Sorry, my internet went a little off there, Brennan, but I heard most of what you said. Who is the best player on the 49ers right now?
Honestly,
if you want to make that argument.
It doesn't even matter. This is still a team that made it to the NFC Championship game last year. Mm-hmm. So obviously they have depth at all their positions. I mean, you can't make it to a game like that without having some kind of positional depth. But if you're the Giants, you lose your best player overall, and you're already not a great team. This isn't going to happen.
I'm not arguing that the Giants even are a better team right now. If everything was the way it should be health-wise, injury-wise, 49ers would be a double-digit favorite. No doubt. But San Fran's best player right now may be Eric Armstead, who I'm going to segue into another reason the Giants would win. Eric Armstead, one of many 49ers who played the Jets last week, he complained on Twitter about the turf at MetLife Stadium and how it just, was causing some of the injuries and how they were a little hesitant to go back out there. And the NFL inducted an investigation. It was on Wednesday. The results came back Thursday. Everything good. It was good in the preseason too, but obviously the 49ers and the NFL thought that they should go reinvestigate just for the, the safety and play for the players. So that's going to be in the back of the mind too of the 49ers. They're coming in injury depleted. They're again on the East Coast, so time zone change, right? And they're playing on a MetLife Stadium turf that they're not confident can keep them healthy. And if nothing happened with the turf, I'd say, hey, the 49ers who were playing the Jets last week, they've actually played the same amount of games the Giants have on MetLife Stadium this season, which is also a fact. But I think the turf is going to be in the back of their mind, and if the Giants get off to a good start, I don't think there's looking back for them. Look, it's optimism. The Giants are only 3.5-point dogs, but they're still underdogs at their home stadium. So that's never a good sign. And they're 0-2. I don't know. They have nothing to lose today. You know, he already started 0-2. I think they're going to pull out all the stops, and I think this is the first win of the Giants season. Not even because a conviction in, sorry to cut you off, Dan, a conviction in the Giants being great. It's just the 49ers are the AAA 49ers.
I think the Giants will do a lot better today if you are in the locker room to give them that speech.
Yeah.
I kind of want to, like, run through my wall right now. That was
yeah, my speech, which is a speech to, always my motivational speech. We're not better than them, but we're better than them right now. That's my speech. Guys, it would be like the Avengers. Out of the million scenarios of this game being played, the 49ers are going to win, but there's just one in which we win. And everything's lining up for that to happen. That would be my speech. It wouldn't be the most motivational. I wouldn't lie to these players. But, yeah. So, there you go. That's why I think the Giants could win. Now, on the flip side, you might think the Giants have no hope. The Jets definitely have no hope. Today they're in Indy playing the Indianapolis. Whoa, you guys are saying this is a hot take. You were the ones after week 1 agreeing that the Jets season was over. Now it's week 3 and we can't say that?
No, I don't know. I just like how honest that was.
Yes.
Yeah. Just drop it right there.
Very honest man. But yes, the Jets are in Indianapolis today, 12.5-point underdogs, game 405 on CBS, and the Jets, still with the injury bug. And look, Indy hasn't looked amazing in these first 2 weeks either. That they lost week 1 to Jacksonville and then last week took care of the Vikings. But this Colts defense is ranked number 1 in the NFL in most of the stats, and at least the important one of points per game. I don't know how the Jets could muster up an offense, because that's been Adam Gase's Achilles heel, even though he's supposed to be this offensive guru, the guy that Peyton Manning said the Jets should hire. He hasn't been able to muster a good enough offensive attack. I don't see a way the Jets win. Is there some with you guys where you think the Jets could maybe keep it close? Because, 12.5 seems like a large number. They're the most, they're the biggest underdog in week 3. But I don't see any way that they stay within Indy besides, a catastrophic injury.
No, I mean, you look at Indianapolis going into the year before their week 1 loss, they were one of the top teams in the AFC. A team that a lot of people were picking as like a dark horse to make the AFC Championship. I still think that they're very good, and I think that week 1 game was kind of a fluke where they maybe have underestimated the Jags. And then you take a look at the Jets, and my favorite thing on Twitter this week was that video where Sam Darnold breaks a tackle and rolls out to his left and then throws it across his body and hits Robbie Anderson for a touchdown, and Jets fans were all like, yeah, this is what Sam Darnold could be doing if he didn't have Adam Gase as a coach. It's like, dude, the offensive line still stinks. You don't have any targets. What are you talking about? He's still not a good quarterback regardless of who is his head coach. So, no, I don't think the Jets have a chance, and I think that the Colts are a lot – honestly, I would have made the spread a little bit bigger. I don't think 12.5 is enough, really.
I've been in this situation for a long time, Bills in the early 2000s. There's a lot of foliage going on in New York State, so you should maybe rake your yard while the Jets are on. Sundays you can do laundry. I just, don't do it. There's so many better things to do with your time, honestly.
Wow. Dan being blunt. By the way, Brennan, I like your Jets fan's voice. I believe that was the most southern drawl Jets fan I've ever met. Oh, Sam Darnold, look at him. He didn't have Adam Gase. I didn't know Jets fans talked like that. Maybe I don't know enough Jets fans, but all the ones I know don't talk like that.
Maybe it's just a blind allegiance that I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was something. Now, the other team in New York, or they'll say the only team in New York, but Dan, your Buffalo Bills are 2-0. Now, I think today's their first test. I'll be honest with you. The Jets in week 1, and I know the Dolphins kept it close last week, but I don't think they're as good as, they played on Thursday night against the Jags. I think it was just a record. And obviously the Bills were missing 2 top linebackers last week. But are you confident going into this game in which the Bills are only a 1-point favorite at Orchard Park?
I think the Bills can definitely win today. They for sure can. Last week was a tough one. Everyone on Bills Twitter thinks it's an inside job calling the lightning delay when there wasn't actually any lightning to throw them off their game. Not going to go that far, but it was a tough scene for Buffalo, able to pull it out. And yeah, I mean the Jets, we already talked about them. So it'll be it should be a close game today. I can see it going. Honestly, I can see it going either way. You know who I picked in our game pick. Yeah, I think it should be their first test today as well. I agree.
Yeah, we'll wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that the Bills. It's a good game. One of the better games in the slate. I mean, we were talking about how a lot of these games are close, but when you look at a game that's only a 1-point spread with Buffalo favored, it's going to be a very fun one to watch. But the Rams are just kind of the Rams. Like it looks like that Super Bowl team where they just kind of plugged their way into the Super Bowl and then ended up having the lowest scoring Super Bowl of all time, where it's not flashy. They don't really have any of the stars, but they still come out and win games. But I think that the Bills are going to counter that with a lot of, obviously Josh Allen is leading the league in passing yards. I think they're going to try and air it out again and see what happens. But I think it's definitely a conflict of two opposite ways of playing offense.
Now, I differ from you guys, not to spoil our picks that will happen at 12:50 right before kickoff, so stay tuned for that. But I like the Rams in this matchup only for one reason. Look, the Bills have a better roster, and I know what you're saying, Brennan, where the Rams are just there's nothing flashy about it. But there's going to be 15-mile-an-hour winds in Buffalo today. It's not going to. I mean, believe me, it's not as the worst weather we're probably going to see in a Bills game this season. It's still September. Don't get me wrong, but I think the offenses are going to try and simplify their attack. I think it's going to be low scoring, and I think that benefits the Rams. The Bills. I think what keeps them around in this game is the fact that they have big play potential. They have speedy wide receivers that could break something through the Rams secondary, but if it's a ground and pound game and a play action game, that's going to benefit the Rams because the Bills have a good play action attack, but the Rams, that's their offense. That's what Sean McVay does. That's what they destroyed the Eagles with. Tyler Higbee had 3 touchdowns as a tight end because, a play action and wheel routes and different looks. That's the Rams' bread and butter, and I think in a game like this, that's why the Rams will come on top. So I pretty much spoiled my pick, but yeah, I think it's going to be a close one. It's going to be, I think, one of the more interesting 1 o'clock games that we have this week. It's a huge slate of NFL games in terms of matchup-wise, and Monday night concluding with maybe the best game of the year so far. But we'll get all that, again, our picks at 12:50, so stay tuned for that. But right now, we'll segue to baseball. It's the last day of the MLB regular season. The New York Mets have been eliminated. It took them to the second to last day to be officially eliminated. Their record at 26-33, so they're done. But the New York Yankees have clinched a playoff berth, but we still don't know where they're playing. And what's, I guess, fun, you could say, it's not fun for Brennan and I, the Yankees don't know who they'll be playing on Tuesday until today's games conclude. They play the Marlins at 3:05 at the stadium, and there's 3 scenarios that I want to take you through. First being, if they the Yanks will play the White Sox if Yanks win, or the Toronto Blue Jays lose, and Chicago wins, or the Indians lose. So follow me with this. Yanks will play
I'm never going to be able to follow you.
Yanks will play the Indians if Yanks win or Jays lose, and Indians win, and Chicago loses. And doomsday scenario, Yanks will play the Rays, so they'll be the 8th seed if the Yanks lose and the Blue Jays win. Which scares me a bit, because the Yankees today start Clark Schmidt, and if you don't know who Clark Schmidt is, you're probably Aaron Boone, because who knows who Clark Schmidt is? I don't even know if the manager. It's his first career start on the 60th game of the MLB season, right before the playoffs. And I know the Marlins are starting Jose Urena. He's 0-3 with like a 9 ERA. I understand it, but not a lot of confidence for me going into this game. And we touched on it last week, Brennan, the expectations and how the Yankees have fallen below that. They can't go into this postseason as an 8th seed, and I don't want them on the road at all. I think that's pretty much been solidified, but they're going to be on the road. But if they're going to be on the road, I think it's White Sox or Indians. I don't think the Rays are a good matchup, and they definitely need to win today.
Here's the thing. When you look at the playoffs and what teams are getting in, obviously you got a lot of surprises on both sides. Nationally, never could have expected the Marlins to be in the playoffs and the Giants to be competing for a playoff spot. I think once you get into the playoffs, things completely change. What you did in the regular season becomes irrelevant. So I'm not really too concerned about the seeding. Obviously, you don't want to play the Rays just because they're in the division. You've already played them so many times this year. But, you look at teams, the Yankee teams in the past. Go back to 2000. The Yankees went 5-17 to close the season, and their team ERA was above 7. And then they went on to win the World Series that year. So once they get into the playoffs, I'm not sure any of this really matters. I think that yesterday when the Yankees scored, 8 runs in 10 minutes, something like that, it's an indication of how good this team can really be, especially with a rookie on the mound in Davy Garcia, who has had a heck of a year, just going out and in his first professional season, really been, the third or fourth starter for the Yankees rotation. I think, they're a team that has a lot of potential, and that's usually something you don't say about a team that at the beginning of the year was considered one of the top contenders for the World Series trophies. So I think that they're a team, once they get into the playoffs, you don't know what can happen. You got the Major League or the American League batting average leader and home run leader on your starting lineup. So obviously that's a roster that can get things done.
Yeah, the fact that I can, for the only time in my life, put on a hat that is both Buffalo and Blue Jays just shows what an insane year this is. The fact that the Yanks should be favorites in any year to win the World Series, and we're talking about them as an 8th seed, and we don't know who they're playing, and the Rays the 1. This year is crazy. So, buckle up, guys. The playoffs are coming. We'll see what happens. If the Yankees are healthy and everything works out for them, they should win. They should win every series. I think they have a very, very good roster. Let's let the crazy season continue. That's all I can say.
The one thing I'll throw in, Brennan, and you touched on it. The positive, I think it's a positive and a negative. The positive is that this team is streaky, but they do have Voit. They do have LeMahieu. I don't think the offensive surge is going to go away, and I think, like you said, good teams get hot at the right time, and that's not my concern going into the postseason. This is my concern. It's the starting pitching, and it's not a traditional playoff where you're starting pitching, you get to see Garrett Cole, maybe twice in one series. In this first series, a 3-game set versus TBT, to be determined today, it's Game 1 Tuesday, Game 2 Wednesday, and then Game 3 Thursday. So it's back-to-back-to-back, day off, obviously, before you start the new series, and then it's 5 games in a row. There's no off days in between, for the 5-game set and in the 3-game set. So how much are you going to see Garrett Cole on 5 days rest? He's not going to start, as of right now, Game 1 of an eventual ALDS series if the Yankees handle business, because he won't have 5 days rest, so he'll have to start Game 2. And then is he good enough on 3 days rest to start Game 5? That's my thing. It's not so much, I don't think the offense, because, the offense, I think, as you said, you got the best hitter in baseball in DJ LeMahieu, and you got the home run king in Luke Voit. And obviously I think Judge will come alive, and you hope Stanton. But the starting pitching, it's a concern. It's a concern. You have to play 5 days in a row, and Garrett Cole, you could, I want to peg, and I think most people would peg as a win versus most teams. Who do you got from there? Tanaka's not a guaranteed win. If J. Happ is not Jimmy Key, he's not.
Playoff Tanaka, though, is just another step of flow.
You know what's funny, Brett? I want Severino. I miss Severino. And I know Tanaka in the postseason, especially last year, elevated his game. He's
one of the greatest pitchers of all time in the postseason.
I know.
Like, second most ERA of any pitcher to ever pitch however many innings qualifies in the postseason. Like, I feel 100% confident in having Masahiro Tanaka go out and start Game 2. And then, honestly, J. Happ kind of turned it on at the end of the year. Davy Garcia has had a heck of a year as a rookie. And then that 5th spot is a question mark. But you know what? Montgomery is a guy who's shown flashes of being a potential top 2 or 3 guy. And obviously we have to see what Clark Schmidt does today. But he's one of the top prospects in the system with a pretty good fastball on him. So I don't feel too bad about it, honestly.
I could agree with you, Tanaka. I don't believe in Happ at all. I believe way more in Garcia than Happ. And
I agree as well.
Yeah.
I think that's true, but I'm just looking at what he's done in the last few games. I think that he had a very cold start to the season. The Yanks skipped him on one of his rotation days. He made a comment about it, and then after that, he's been pitching the lights out.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be an interesting one. That's, I think, what plagues them, just the amount of days, games in a row. But everyone's in the same boat. It's not like the other teams in the American League playoffs will have, won't have to play 3 in a row, day off, then 5 in a row. So, and you look through the teams, and the Yankees are definitely, I wouldn't call them tops in major leagues, but near the top in the American League in terms of, starting pitching rotation. Again, I still don't think it's enough, but I think, Brennan, you touched on it. If you get hot at the right time, that could carry you through the postseason. So it's going to be an interesting one.
At least we're talking about the playoffs.
What was that?
At least we're talking about the playoffs, like that other New York team that's playing golf.
Hey, but they have Steve Cohen now. They have Steve Cohen. Come on. I mean, what's better? Potentially, playing till the end of October and winning, the 28th World Series, or you have, a billionaire corrupt guy having as your owner. I don't know.
Listen, I had someone text me, and he said, and he was talking about this season. I'm like, imagine not thinking that winning a championship is the ultimate goal to a season.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. When you start a year, you want to win the World Series. Regardless of what happens in between, even if you get a new owner, if you don't win the World Series, then it's a failed season, I feel like.
Brennan, they didn't win a championship, but they won the Steve Cohen sweepstakes. So,
woo!
Come on. I don't know. Oh, man. Oh, boy. So now we will go from the MLB to the NBA, which is in its conference finals right now. One team has made it to the NBA finals. That is the Los Angeles Lakers. They took care of the Denver Nuggets last night. They won in a 5-game series. And the Celtics, Dan's team, even though he's wearing a Buffalo Blue Jay hat and the Bills, he is a Celtics fan right now. They have Game 6 tonight, 7:30, ESPN against Miami Heat. And Dan, we'll start, we'll get your reaction with the Celtics. I definitely, want to hear your thoughts and your nervousness going into this Game 6. But how impressed were you with the Lakers, who, again, they're playing a Nuggets team that, I don't think many touted at the beginning of the season as someone who'd make the Western Conference Finals, but we saw the Nuggets take care of a very good Utah Jazz team, and the Los Angeles Clippers, who were favored in that series. The Nuggets came back from down 3-1 and won, but LeBron put an end to that last night. What's your reaction?
Well, if you think Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time, that's a very valid opinion, and I don't have a problem with that. But I have always thought that it's LeBron James, and for these reasons especially. The guy's been to 10 NBA Finals. He has a lot of help this year with Anthony Davis. That's huge. But he's done more with less, in my opinion, in his entire career. And now here we are. He just defeated the Nuggets, which I didn't think I'd be saying, to get to the NBA Finals. But they have been really, really tough. And LeBron and the Lakers have just been consistently the front runners so far in this finals. And I think everyone, around the NBA thinks it's his finals to lose.
Yeah, the LeBron came to play. You can't really, in games 3 and game 4 for LeBron James, I think he was a little under expectations in terms of his performance. But last night, I believe he had a triple-double near, I think it was 37 points he had last night. And it was close in the third quarter, but then the Lakers just, finished it off in the beginning of the fourth and didn't make it a close game. Before we get into the Celtics, just another thing, Dan. Where does this put, this postseason? I know you can't look too much into, just maybe this postseason run. I don't want to call it fluky, but where do you look at Jamal Murray in terms of point guards in the NBA? Because going into this playoff, I probably want to put him in the top 10, but a couple 50-point games, out-dueling Donovan Mitchell, who, I viewed as better going into the series, and really could hit a shot from anywhere on the floor, which is what the modern NBA is. So I'm guessing you were impressed by Jamal Murray like most people, but, how do you view him now?
You got to think that the Nuggets are going to be actually take them seriously, I should say, from now on. Most of the time, it's like, the Nuggets made the playoffs, they might win a series, and they're gone. Let's let the big boys take care of it now, the Clippers and the Lakers. But now I think you have to take them seriously, especially with the way that Murray and Jokic have played all throughout the playoffs, and especially in a really weird year like this with the bubble where things don't seem to make sense like they normally do. Jamal Murray has shown people that he is a legitimate point guard in the West. I think you can definitely put him top 10. If you want to put him top 5 this year, I don't have a problem with that. But we'll see how they can do this once things get back to normal. But for this year, very, very, very impressive.
Now we shift to the Eastern Conference, Dan, and I know we talked about it last week, how you're, a very centered Celtics fan. You're not too up and down in terms of what has been, I think, up and down 3 years for them. But they are 2 games away from the NBA Finals. In their ways, the Miami Heat, who are up 3-2. Miami Heat led by Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. Probably not the team you thought was coming out of the East either, but they're playing hot at the right time. They have a good, starting lineup. Jimmy Butler has been, I think, what he's not viewed as a number 1 option. He has been that in Miami, and he has performed amazingly in these playoffs. But I think, Dan, you think the Celtics could force a Game 7? How do they do so tonight? Or do you think they fall flat tonight?
Well, I think if you're going to put money on it, you have to put it on the Heat because they're only 1 game away, and they've played great this series. So, unfortunately for me, I guess, and the entire state of Massachusetts, I think that it's most likely that the Heat are going to be in the finals. That's what's going to happen. But Boston really needs to play like they did in the last third quarter. They outscored the Heat by like a bajillion points. They were just like shot out of a cannon. They were more intense. They were able to get stops on defense. That's what they have to do, and they have to make threes. But as far as the Heat go, if they do get to the finals, the Lakers have the first and second best players in that series, but the Heat have like 3 through 13. They have like every other great player right there. Unfortunately, maybe for the Heat though, that's not normally working out well for them. If you have the best player, you're going to win. So we'll see what happens, but I think the Heat are probably going to be in the finals. And Heat fans are just going to be beside themselves playing LeBron James in the finals. They're like 2 teams to go, so maybe it won't sting as bad if they lose. But if you're a Heat fan, I don't know. Do you want to play LeBron in the finals? Do you want him after he left? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. No matter who wins, the Celtics or Miami, it's going to be an interesting NBA Finals with a lot of storylines. And I think, Dan, the X hurts, but the X is X, like so I don't know if that stings as much. I wouldn't know from experience, but I don't think it stings as much. But no matter what, as I said, there is going to be storylines with this. Again, Lakers Celtics would be great. Revisit of the '80s and the new era, and LeBron versus a very good team, the Celtics, and then the Heat, the storyline where LeBron, won his first final in Miami, brought the titles to South Beach, decided to go down there when he entered free agency, and then left them, but and Eric Spoelstrom's still the coach of the Miami Heat, and he was the coach under LeBron, under LeBron, I should say. He was the coach for LeBron, even though that's how sometimes it feels. But, and I think Miami, I don't know if they have disdain for LeBron. I mean, I think D-Wade is more beloved there, but without LeBron during those years, they're not getting the additional NBA championships that they have. So, it's definitely going to be interesting, and the NBA Finals obviously will start once the Eastern Conference is concluded, and tonight's Game 6 is 7:30 on ESPN. Now I want to shift it to, bubble to bubble. I've been making the segue, now 3rd week in a row, but I think it's the only way to do it, Brennan. The fist bump. So the Stanley Cup Final, last night, we both predicted, last night was Game 5, we predicted that we'd be talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning being the Stanley Cup champions on this day, and that it was going to be a gentleman's sweep. The Lightning were going to, after they dropped Game 1, were going to win 4 in a row and win. They won 3 in a row, and then last night, almost. And then last night, the Dallas Stars in double overtime, it was Corey Perry who got one by Vasilevsky, a 3-2 victory. And again, back-to-back overtime games. It's what, Stanley Cup hockey provides you. But right now, the Lightning up 3-2 in the series. Game 6 is Monday. But I've been impressed. Again, Brendan, you and me are similar on our pick. We thought Lightning in 5, and I would think Lightning in 6 too. I think they're going to take it. But this Dallas Stars team has been impressive. They were the underdogs to Calgary, got through them. They were, not favored versus the Vegas Golden Knights, who were the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, got by then, even though things look tough. So this is a team like the Nuggets that we talked about in the previous segment. They could overcome adversity. I've been impressed with the Stars. I think I know where you're going to fall on this, but do you think the Stars have enough to win in 7?
No. We talked about right. We talked about it last week where we thought it was going to be 4-1 sweep for the Lightning. everything that we've said has really come true, and we were a double overtime game away from being correct on our 4-1 picks. I don't think that the Stars have it. I mean, obviously they've put in a great run. They beat the 1 seed in the Golden Knights in the Western Conference Finals, but his Lightning squad is very, very good, and at some point the Magic's got to run out. I think that the Lightning are going to pretty much take this one in the next game. I don't think it gets to 7. I didn't expect it to get to 6 regardless. And, you know, you talk about the veteran stars on the Stars. I didn't mean to do that, but there we are. With Joe Pavelski and Corey Perry, you can't rely on old heads to try and get those kind of goals and step up, especially in the overtime periods. You can get lucky once or twice, and they did last night, so I don't see it happening again.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the veterans thing. I think there's 10, believe Emmerich said the stat last night, 10 players above 30 on both teams. So it's pretty much what hockey hasn't gone the last couple of years, where hockey, you know, they're developing younger, better teams. But this one, full of veterans. But I think you're right. The Stars rely too much on their veterans and too much on their goaltender. I mean, Anton Khudobin, especially when he got pulled in, I believe it was Game 3. You know, you can't put too much on him, and he's performed in these last 2 games and really kept them in, because Stars again were outplayed in terms of shots on goal last night by the Tampa Bay Lightning. But yeah, I think they finish it in 6, and to the points that you put forward. And I think the Lightning will take it. It's definitely been a fun Stanley Cup playoffs. You know, obviously it'll end by the next time we're on air, but they did the bubble correctly, in my opinion. Both host cities really worked, so there was that difference. You know, in terms of a nerd perspective from me, you got to see a bunch of, you know, different announcer groups because of the fact that they could be remote, and I thought that was really interesting. And I mean, early on there was a couple COVID cases, but from there the players really wanted to play hockey and then, you know, go back to their families in a safe environment. And they did that. And it's I think a good thing for the NHL. I know the ratings are down because of all the competition they're facing from, you know, the NBA being the playoffs, MLB coming down the home stretch, and of course football being back. But I think a good job done by the NHL. And one last note, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about later on the show too when we introduce a new segment. But Mark Stahl traded to the Red Wings. The 13-year New York Ranger is finally gone. And I say finally because towards the end there, fans definitely wanted him out. It frees up $5.7 million in cap space. And, Brennan, I'm going to, you know, look at the positive memories with Mark Stahl. You know, the cup runs, the good plays he made. But towards the end there, he was what people refer to as a traffic cone. He was not great, but 13-year run, now the longest tenured New York athlete is my man Brett Gardner. But Mark Stahl, finally out of New York, goes to the Red Wings for the final year of his contract. What are your memories of Mark Stahl, thoughts on him? And I think, you know, and I know you agree, a great deal by the New York Rangers to get that cap space free.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, you know, thinking of the memories, and you go back to the cup run, and he was a guy that played a big role in that. But then it's kind of been tainted in these last few years with him being a liability, both offensively and defensively, and especially on the power play, where he was, I think, minus in the double digits exclusively on the power play. So you hate to see that. But, you know, I think it was all for both sides. I think they won this trade. The Red Wings get a veteran defenseman who they can kind of plug in, and he can take up space on the ice and maybe try and build some kind of culture. And for the Rangers, they get a cap dump, free up $5.7 million in the cap, as you mentioned, and they give up a second-round pick. But you know what? When you got the first overall pick in this year's draft, you can kind of value those second-rounders a little bit less because you're not really going to get the same amount of value out of it. So I think it works for both sides. Obviously, you hate to see a guy who's been in New York for so long leave, but you know, when it's a win, when you win the trade and it's positive, you can't really be that, you know, upset about it.
No, I agree. And Mark Stahl, you touched on the points towards the end. Through his 13 years, a great guy in the community, a fan favorite for the most part, as we said. But gonna miss him. But I think the smart deal for the Rangers moving forward and what they hope the next couple of years are cup contending years. We'll switch now to college football, a topic we haven't talked on the 2 previous episodes of the MVP radio show. But a shocker yesterday in college football. 2 top 10 teams lose, and another one was forced to overtime. That being Texas. They survived against Texas Tech 63-56. A good defensive matchup in that one. But the look at that. Look at that. Texas Tech. So I guess you're dropping your expectations with the 1-2 Syracuse Orange. I guess you're full Red Raiders now, huh?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't say that.
Oh, sure.
No, Syracuse came out yesterday. They looked great.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible. They had some freshmen step up and came out and won a game versus Georgia Tech. Opened up the dome the right way.
Yeah.
The new dome, the new LED scoreboard, the new roof looked beautiful on TV at least. Hopefully in person we're going to be able to see it here soon. But they came out and won. And then you mentioned Texas Tech. It was brutal to watch. I don't know why I've been a Texas Tech fan for as long as I have. I think it was because I liked playing with them in NCAA. I think 2008 when they had the air raid offense, throw the ball over the top, fast pace. That was brutal. I thought it was going to be horns down for that whole game. Texas Tech looked really good up until the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. I went to visit my brother yesterday. He's actually at school, so that's a positive. And on the way home, I was watching the game on my phone, and I'm telling my dad, I'm like, hey, Texas Tech's about to upset another top 10 team in the country. Like, this is going to be a big game, especially in a rivalry game. But no, an onside kick, and then the complete lack of defense, not only for Texas Tech, but in the Big 12, kind of came back to bite us there.
Yeah, no, and you touched on it with Texas Tech should have won that game. You were fine making that prediction. How they blew it, it was crazy. Just I think the best game of the season, going back and forth. You mentioned Cuse. It was a good job by them too to delay the start because of COVID tests and not have that straightened out too. Great job all around. You're right. Going to the top 10 teams that lost. You mentioned the air raid offense that you liked playing in NCAA video games. Mississippi State defeated LSU 44-34. It was Mike Leach's debut in the SEC with that air raid offense. And, I think LSU adjusted well. They allowed 623 passing yards. So that shows you, too, that maybe a Big 12, a Pac-12 offense being implemented in the SEC could cause danger for these SEC defenses that usually face primarily a run. Obviously, in the last couple of years, it shifted more with the pass, with Bama relying on Tua and LSU with Joe Burrow. But it's definitely still a run-first, defensive approach. And LSU going to have to make some adjustments for next week after allowing that many yards. And number 3, Oklahoma lost to Kansas State 38-35. And this is a Kansas State team that lost their first game of the season against Arkansas State. So also, my favorite game in college football, I know you like playing it too, Brennan. If Arkansas State beat Kansas State and Kansas State beat Oklahoma, then Arkansas State's better than Oklahoma.
They are the Big 12 champions, I think.
So, that's how it works. So, but yeah, I didn't think Kansas State would pull the upset yesterday, but they did, especially because, again, they lost to Arkansas State in week 1. But that's what's great about college football. And the other thing of note, Notre Dame was another top 10 team, but they didn't play. Their game pushed back due to 7 players this week getting COVID-19 positive test results back. So detriment to them, but maybe the good thing because they didn't, top 10 teams were on upset alert all throughout this week in college football. But, yeah.
John, I just want to talk about that LSU Mississippi State game a little bit more because to watch Mississippi State and KJ Costello just throw the ball all over an SEC defense like that, people wonder why Oklahoma continues to make the college football playoff, which it doesn't look like they'll make it this year, considering they just lost to Kansas State and are no longer the Big 12 champions. Shout out Arkansas State. But to watch a Big 12 offense in Mississippi State and Mike Leach go out and just tear up the defending national champions, who really, on defense, they were solid. I think the main reason they kind of dropped out of the polls because you lose the number 1 overall pick in the most important position in football. You're not going to be as good as you were last year. But to watch them was just awesome. And I would love to see more high-paced, air raid style offenses, especially in the SEC, where those games, you can have a classic 10-7 Florida win over Georgia. And it's like, really, you paid to watch that kind of game? No, I want to see a 63-57 game and some points on the board. Come on now.
Yeah, no, it was definitely fun to watch, Dan.
Either of you overwhelmed with sports right now?
Yes.
Like, when I saw that there was college football going on yesterday, I was like, I can't even keep up with what's going on. Like, I watched some of the games, but for the most part, I was like, how am I going to remember all of this with the NBA and the NHL is going on, the MLB playoffs are starting, the NFL is happening. My brain kind of wants to explode, to be honest with you.
No, I think it was last week that we had, what was it? It was the MLB, the NBA, the NFL. It was a Thursday, or it was the opening Thursday of the NFL season, where we had literally, I think, 7 or 8 major leagues playing at the same time or on the same day, and that was the first time that has ever happened. I love it.
Yeah, you remember too, like even though they're small sports, MLS, WNBA are playing as well. So, I think it makes up for those months in March and April and May where we had nothing. But this is definitely sensory overload. And Dan, I hope you hang in there, man. Get some water and hang in there.
It was crazy. I kind of felt like, I don't know if you guys follow on Twitter that account, No Context College Football, where they just literally post random pictures of college football. That's how it felt to me watching the games. Like, how am I going to remember all of this happening? It was crazy.
Yeah, but definitely a lot happening in sports, and that's why we're here, just to simplify it for everyone and to give people what they need to know. And a new segment we're introducing right now. This was the think tank of Dan Passante. He said, "Hey, we're the MVP show, right? Miller, Vicari, Passante. Might as well have an MVP of the week. I like the idea. We're gonna try it out. If it bombs, Dan, I blame you. So it's no risk for me. So we'll do our MVPs of the week, and there's a lot of ways you could go with this. Again, as we said, so much sports happening. But I'm going to give it to DJ LeMahieu. Look, I talked about the Yankees' concerns going into this postseason and who they're going to play today. But the one constant on this team, the one source of consistency all season long has been DJ LeMahieu. Yesterday goes 4 for 5 to boost his average to 359. The guy who was chasing him for the American League batting title, and Tim Anderson, goes 0 for 5. And is now batting 328. And when it mattered most, when you're DJ LeMahieu and you're trying to win this batting title, and someone's breathing down your neck, to go 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs, just shows a testament to his greatness. He will secure the American League batting title, his second. He's won a National League batting title as a Colorado Rocky as well. But he's my MVP of the week. I don't know who you can give it to, if anyone else in baseball. I know you guys are going away from baseball with your picks, but DJ LeMahieu, the MVP of the week for me. Brennan?
My MVP of the week is going to be James Dolan.
Explain.
James Dolan, yes, the owner of MSG and by proxy the New York Rangers, getting rid of Mark Stahl, clearing that cap space, and really we talked about it already, but all this does is allow us to, sign free agents, Tony DeAngelo, Ryan Strome, Alex Georgiev, Brendan Lemieux, guys who really contributed last year. And with the Rangers making the playoffs, I think that a move like this, giving them cap space and allowing them a little more freedom in free agency, really puts the Rangers up there as top cup contenders, especially holding the number 1 overall pick this year with a clear number 1. And I don't speak French. I took 5 years of Spanish in high school, but I believe it's Lafreniere.
Alexis Lafreniere. That's how I pronounce it.
Yeah, his number 1 overall pick. Yes. So that's my MVP.
I like, Dan, before you go, sorry. I like just giving credit to Dolan over Jeff Gordon, John Davidson. It's a bold move. It's a bold move, And he, you can't blame Dolan for this. You can't, This is a good move, but yeah, there you go. And I think the Rangers could also maybe extend Jesper Foss too with this money, which I'm hoping for. Because he's just been the glue of the Rangers throughout this last decade, and we need him going forward. But Dan, you're going to the analyst, to the broadcast booth for your MVP of the week.
The MVP segment, as it is currently known, is very influenced by the iconic radio segment of the Friend Zone on the Nick Friend Show, a play on the name, remembering our friend Nick Friend. What was I going to say? Yeah, my pick this week is a very satirical Charles Barkley. My award being handed to him very satirically because, people got so angry at him for what he said on the show, which I'm not trying to get into, but he did pick a game correctly. So I'm going to give him the award for that. No credit at all for what he said that made people upset. And if you haven't seen it, you should look it up. Good job, Chuck. You get the MVP this week, and maybe you'll get a game in the finals too. We'll see how it goes.
Yep, good old Charles Barkley, picking the Lakers finally, and that was sort of like the Nuggets fans got some support from them because he was picking against them, and they just kept winning in the playoffs. So, but he did pick the Lakers, and again, they cashed their ticket to the NBA Finals, awaiting the Celtics and the Heat. Before we go into our picks, Brennan, do you have any NFL news, anything to report in terms of injury, fantasy news for anyone watching?
Yeah, so let's go into I'm going to pull my phone like I'm an NFL insider.
Yes,
like I'm getting this information from the inside, like I know owners. Let's see. Let's think of the week 3 actives and inactives. For the Raiders, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, both active this week. Jacobs, obviously a big running back in the fantasy world. Let's see. Julian Edelman and N'Keal Harry, both active for the Patriots. So 2 wide receiver threats there for Cam Newton to throw to. And then defensive side, Fletcher Cox, Vic Beasley, both active this week, along with Devonta Freeman and Kenny Stills on the offensive side of the ball. And then for some notable inactives, just before we started, we all got a notification on our phone. Just kidding. I got a text from the owner of the Atlanta Falcons that told me Julio Jones was not going to be active today. He and Duke Johnson and John Ross all inactive, so that plays a little bit of a fantasy role. But yeah, obviously I'm an NFL insider, so I got all those things not from Bleacher Report and exclusively from my inside sources.
You're jacked like Jay Glazer too, so I think it makes sense. But
yeah, thank you.
All right, so that's your latest NFL news, actives and inactives, and boys, we're gonna go into our picks now. It's what we tease all show because guys, they're money. They are absolute money. We went 10-5 in week 1 with our picks, not implementing our point system, which we'll explain now. But last week, me and Brennan went 12-3 in the 15 games we selected, and Dan went 13-2. So, guys, people watching, trust our picks. We're on the money so far in this NFL season. Maybe in a couple weeks we will be saying the opposite. But for right now, be confident in our picks. I'm not going to tell you, go to your to your bookie and put them in. Not going to do that. But I mean, heed our advice. We're picking some winners here, and we'll start with our lock, upset, and game of the week segment. And this is always fun. And we'll start with our locks on the season. I'm 1-1 with my locks. Brennan is 2-0, as well as Dan. The Eagles just messed me up in week 1, and that's why I don't have a 2-0 lock. But Brennan and Dan have been pretty consistent with their locks. And boys, you have the same lock this week. Brennan, you could explain your reasoning behind your lock, and Dan will probably piggyback on it as well.
Yep, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for my lock. Me and Dan both agree with that one. It really came down to the fact, I know Dan's going to touch on this, but we couldn't pick the Colts over the Jets because it's got to be 7 points or less. Tampa Bay is a 5.5-point favorite, and it doesn't really have a lot to do with how good the Bucs are. I think for me personally, it has a lot to do with how bad the Broncos are and the fact that they have a backup quarterback starting. So I think even with the backup quarterback, I think 5.5 points is not a big enough spread for this one, and that's my reasoning for the Buccaneers.
The Bucs are going to win today. That's why I picked them. That's why we all pick them. That's why we're so good, because we picked the winner. They're going to win. They're going to beat the Broncos. The Bucs are no longer the Yucks. They got Brady. They got Gronk. You said everything I was going to say, so now I'm just rambling. Pick the Bucs.
Yep, they both picked the Bucs again. Bucs versus Broncos. That in the 4:00 window, and Tampa's favorite by 5.5. I'm going somewhere else with my lock, and maybe I don't think it's a smart thing to do because these guys are 2-0, but I am going with the Los Angeles Chargers against the Carolina Panthers. Look, the Chargers are favored by 6.5. The limit on which we could put the locks in, you have to be favored by 7 points or less. 6.5 is pretty darn close, and I don't see a way that the Panthers defeat the Chargers. And, they bit me in the butt last year. The Chargers did when I picked them in something like this. But I think the Chargers this year are different, and they're playing a Panthers team with their biggest offensive weapon, and Christian McCaffrey not active. So who is Teddy Bridgewater going to hand the ball off to? I'm not sure. I think the Chargers defense is going to be in the backfield all day. Bridgewater's going to have a rough game, and the Los Angeles Chargers will take care of business against the 0-2 Carolina Panthers. So now we'll go to our upsets, and a little similarity in the upset picks as well. It's me and Dan agreeing with the upset where Brennan strays from the pack. Brennan, you'll start first because obviously not difference in similarities. Where are you going with your upset of the week? You're 1-1 this season in the upset category.
Now that I'm looking at it, I realize I picked my lock and upset very similarly, where I'm taking the Bengals as my upset, and it doesn't have a lot to do with how good the Bengals are. It has a lot to do with how bad the Eagles have been this year, and the fact that they cannot get anything going in the passing game. I'll talk about a little bit later when we run through who everyone else has picked in that game. But my upset, is the Bengals over the Eagles.
There you go. And the Eagles are favored by 5 in that game against the Bengals. And the Bengals aren't your normal 0-2, I don't think. I think that's a good pick. We all went with the Bengals, but Brennan is locking it in as his upset of the week. Dan, me and you, we went with the Texans over the Steelers. And my reasoning, I don't want to steal from you again, but my reasoning is, hey, the Texans took on, in the first 2 weeks, the Ravens and the Chiefs. That's our game of the week because they're the 2 best teams in football. What did you expect the Texans to do? Not be 0-2? I don't understand this. I understand giving Pitt the 4-point favorite because they are at home and they are undefeated this year. But Pitt's played the Broncos and the Giants. Come on. The Texans have played who they've played, and they stuck around long enough. I think Houston goes on the road in Pittsburgh, and in a desperation, because they don't want to go 0-3, and they're better than 0-3, Deshaun Watson will get it done. And Dan, you agree with me.
I picked the Texans because, yes, they're going to bounce back today. I picked the Texans because I'm mad at the Steelers because I picked the Broncos to win, and then the Steelers won, so that's just personally, I'm really angry at them. And I picked the Texans because, when you watch pro basketball, and a player runs down and chase down blocks another player and how satisfying it is to watch. I am looking forward to the Bills doing that to the Texans later in the playoffs. So they think they're really good and then we just step on them. So that's also why I'm picking the Texans.
Solid.
So there you go. That is our upset picks. And now the game of the week. Monday Night Football. How they got this game, did ESPN? I don't know, but it's Chiefs versus Ravens. Ravens at home favored by 3.5. This one is game of the week, might be game of the season. You have to obviously see when the records play out and later, but this one was pegged as the game to watch coming into this season, and the teams in it, the Chiefs and the Ravens, both 2-0, both living up to what they were billed as. And guys, we have a unanimous decision with this. We think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to come into Baltimore, probably Ravens wearing their black jerseys on prime time at night. And they're going to take care of the Baltimore Ravens. I think we think it's going to be a close one, but unanimously going with the Kansas City Chiefs. I want your reasoning on that. Mine is, I think Mahomes has looked better than Lamar this season. Both have great defenses, but it's going to come down to the best quarterback play, and I think Patrick Mahomes will outplay Lamar Jackson. Dan, your reasoning behind picking the Chiefs?
Patrick Mahomes. I was just going to say that. I think he's been fantastic. I think he's going to be fantastic in this game. Honestly, that's why I picked him. He's really great.
I'm a huge fan of the bounce back game. And I think that last week the Chiefs had a rough showing against the Chargers, but were still able to pull out a win. I think that this week, obviously, you take a look at the things that you did wrong last week against a team that, while they're good, they're not really up to the level of the Ravens, and we don't really look at the Chargers as a team that has a chance to win the AFC title. I think that the Chiefs can take a look at everything they did wrong and turn that all around. I expect probably over 300 yards from Patrick Mahomes, maybe a few tutters. Travis Kelce might get on the end of a few of those. But I think the Chiefs' offense is going to come out and have a big game exclusively because they had such a poor game last week.
There you go. That's our reasoning behind the game of the week. And again, it is a additional points in terms of the game of the week. Lock and upset. They're 2 points in our point system. And before we pick the rest of the games in NFL Week 3, we are all tied with 27 points in our point system. So as even as you get, and this week maybe where someone separates themselves from the pack, we will see. And we'll go through now our NFL Week 3 picks. Dan, begins with you, looking at the Bears versus the Falcons to start Week 3.
Well, folks, if you want to pick this game, you should honestly just flip a coin. But I picked the Falcons, John picked the Falcons, and Brennan picked the Bears. The Bears are 2.5-point dogs. The Falcons are at home. I picked them because they're at home. But again, close one.
We touched on it earlier. The next game up, 49ers versus Giants. 49ers favored by 3.5. I'm the lone soul picking the New York Football Giants, as I will be probably every week in this NFL season. Look, are the Giants a better team than the San Francisco 49ers? No. But the San Francisco 49ers do not have their starting quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. Nick Mullins is there. They're starting their third-string running back because Coleman and Mostert are out. The 49ers do not have Bosa on the defensive side of the ball. They do not have Richard Sherman on the defensive side of the ball. The 49ers are playing on the same turf that they played last week in which these injuries occurred, and that's going to be in the back of their head. Is it so much good Giants, my reasoning for the pick? No. It's injury-riddled San Francisco 49ers. I think this is a defining game for Daniel Jones in his young career. I think this is when he steps up, like I alluded to earlier. Eli Manning, Phil Simms, Y.A. Tittle all won their first career games against the San Francisco 49ers. Jones wants to be in that echelon. He needs to step up his game today without his star running back in Saquon Barkley, without his star receiver in Sterling Shepard. He needs to get it done. I call the Giants in a close one. Brennan and Dan disagree with me. You could look back at our opening segment of why they do, but we got to keep the train rolling. And Rams and Bills, Dan, it's your team.
Yeah. So Brennan and I have the Bills. John has the Rams. It's going to be a close one. The Bills are favored by 1. I think they can win today. If they don't, won't be shocked. The next one is the Washington football team and the Browns. I'm never going to pick the Washington football team because they have the worst name and they stink. I'm picking the Browns I'm positive of it. Think about that. And then there's the Titans and the Vikings. All three of us have the Titans. Should be another close one though. Titans favored by 2.5. Brennan, I believe you have our next one.
I already talked about a little bit. Bengals versus Eagles. I love the way that Joe Burrow has been playing, even though he threw the ball, 61 times in last week's game against the Browns, something like that. I think that he has the potential to be a star in the future of the league, and I like them to upset the Eagles exclusively because the Eagles, I don't know who that is. The Eagles cannot find their offense, and Deshaun Jackson, who is in his 30s, is their leading receiver. Next game is Texans versus Steelers. Pittsburgh is the favorite at -4. Two of us, and all of us have the Bengals in that game as well. Probably should have thrown that in there considering that's what we're doing here. Steelers versus Texans. Two of us have the Texans, and it's not me. I'm picking the Steelers in this one. It's a battle of the Watt brothers. We haven't mentioned that at all, but that's going to be a fun one to watch just for that reason alone. I don't know. I like the Steelers at home. The Texans are a good team. Obviously, they don't deserve to be 0-2. They've had the hardest schedule open of any team in the league. But I'm still going with the Steelers in this one. Dan, you're up.
Clam Newton's going to beat John Gruden this week. Write it down, folks. All three of us have the Pats over one of my favorite coaches, man, John Gruden.
I'll tell you what, man, that's a good pick. Panthers versus Chargers is next. We talked about it earlier. No McCaffrey. That's why I have the Chargers as my lock. Brennan and Dan have that as well. Now the Jets and the Colts. Colts are favored by 12.5. Do we really think the Jets have a shot in this one? Come on, people.
No.
The biggest underdog in this Week 3 slate. Jets are not going to get the job done in Indianapolis. We have the Colts across the board. Bucks versus Broncos is up next. And Brennan, Dan, you have that as your lock.
Yes, we do. Bucks locked in at -5.5 against the Broncos. Talked about it earlier. Broncos playing with a backup quarterback. Denver Broncos have had the most quarterbacks, most different starting quarterbacks since the retirement of Peyton Manning than any team in the league with 8 different starting quarterbacks. Obviously, this one not because of any rotational thing, but because of an injury. But at the same time, consistency at the quarterback position is the most important thing in football, and the Broncos don't have it. Bucks as a lock, all three of us with that one.
Next up is the Lions versus the Cardinals. Detroit has disappointed. I thought they'd be better than the way that they are playing. Arizona has looked good. A surprising 2-0 team this season after defeating the 49ers and the Washington football team. So we have the Cards across the board. They are -5. I was going to say Sunday Night Football. It's the Fox game of the week. Cowboys versus Seahawks. Seahawks are favored by 5. Dan and Brennan have the Seahawks. I'm going with the Cowboys. I think, again, this is where the Cowboys have to step up. They won a shootout last week in Atlanta. I think Dak has enough to get it done versus Seattle. This one, it's going to be tough on the road, but this is a game, if the Cowboys are for real this season, they have to take. So that's why I'm picking the Cowboys. And Brennan, your team, the Packers, on Sunday Night Football.
Sunday Night Football, New Orleans -3 in this one, the favorites, but all three of us are going with the Packers. And honestly, I just kind of picked the Packers because of blind allegiance. I'm not really sure why you guys did, but anyone else want to explain that to me?
Drew Brees is old.
All right. Dan, any reason?
Packers are going to win.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know if you guys saw the Sunday Night Football commercial that came out a few days ago that was like, and never see the punters. And Pat McAfee replied to it and was like, this is blasphemy. And so NFL Sunday Night Football made another commercial that said see, and they just clipped out or the never part, and it said see the punters. But I think that what they say in that commercial is true, is that there's going to be a lot of offense in this game. Packers have the number 1 offense in the league right now, and the Saints have a lot of weapons. So a lot of points, but the Packers all three of us have the Packers.
There'll be a lot of points in the Monday Night Football game as well. Game of the week, we went over it, but we have the Chiefs across the board in what will sure be a doozy on Monday night between the Chiefs and the Ravens in Baltimore. Baltimore favored by 3.5. And boys, that's our time. NFL Week 3 is about to kick off. Again, at Twitter, we are at the MVP Show. I'll try and get a couple clips from today's show if you missed it up there throughout the day. Boys, any last things to say? I know I put you on the spot last week with that, but any last things to say? I think we had a great show that covered a lot. You guys are good?
Yep.
All right. Guys, Giants are going to win. 1-2, baby. I can feel it.